Good morning, everyone. This is Stan Craig, and I'm happy to have this chance to be with you this morning to talk about some things that I think are really, really important. So, this morning we're going to talk about what do you know? And the truth is, although you've heard many people say it, what you don't know can't hurt you. That is never, never the case. What you don't know can hurt you. And at Net Law, one of the primary things that's important about what we do is helping people understand how mistaken they are to assume that they do not need an estate plan. The estate plan is a big ball of wax, right? It sounds like it's so enormous, but it's basically three things. NetLaw MD brings to you what we call the Advanced Care Planning Package, which includes the durable power of attorney for healthcare, the living will, and HIPAA authorities. Then NetLaw Estate allows you to create a will, two wills, to set up beneficiaries. It's really important to set aside your trust, your revocable living trust. And then there's NetLaw Philanthropy that talks about what do you want to do to create a legacy for yourself by your gifts. So those things are really critical. But I want us to be sure that we understand them completely. So today we're going to spend our time talking about one aspect of what you need to know when you're talking to your clients about net law. And this first fact is a fact that's not only true about net law, but of course it's true for you as well. And I'm really pleased about that. The reason is clear. What you do every day is educational. You came into this business not only because you wanted to be successful, not only because you wanted to help people, but because you wanted to learn and you want to pass on that education. That's one thing I really, really enjoy about what we do together. We're both committed to education, and education is critical for us, isn't it? It's so important because the truth is we have all been hurt by not knowing. Sometimes it's clear we didn't know what we were doing and it hurt us medically. We ate or drank or did something that without our knowledge really caused us great pain. We've all been hurt by not knowing how things work, whether it's how my car battery works, how to change a tire, whether it's how to do something around the house. We've all been hurt by not knowing. That's the reason education is so important. And we're not the minority. We're not the minority when it comes to not knowing. Most of us in this world are lacking knowledge. The scripture says, my people hurt for a lack of knowledge. And that's just so true. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is insight. Knowledge is comfort. But they're everywhere. And all around you, every prospect, every client, every contact is a person who really does not know what you know. But it's one thing not to know. It's another thing not to care. Isn't it astounding when people say, don't know, don't care? Don't know, don't care. My goodness. It's difficult to take the responsibility for raising a family by being a parent, difficult to take the responsibility for attending college or learning a new profession, such as the profession that we are all in, and say, well, I don't know, but I really don't care. I just don't want to know. Wow, that's not a commitment to education. That's a commitment to ignorance, right? So what we've got to do is find ways that we can be active learners. Now, learning is both passive and active, right? Some things we learn, things we don't even know about. Remember, there are things we've talked about education, that first we start out not knowing what we don't know. We just don't know what we don't know. When we start a new profession, such as coming to financial services, we don't know all there is we don't know. Just can't, because we're just starting. The second stage, though, is knowing what we don't know. And that's when you start talking to your mentors, the people around you, the people who support you, members of your team, even your clients sometimes. And then you become aware that there's things you don't know. And that is a scary part in our lives, right? When we get aware of the things we don't know. And that's why we start making our learning become active. And then we get to the point where there are things that we know. We know. I understand how net law works. I understand how mutual funds work. I understand how dollar cost averaging works. I understand why savings is so important. I understand how to make contributions to a 401k. I understand how to write up an IRA. And then we get to that point where we're really comfortable with knowing what we know. But there's a third stage, last stage rather. And the last stage is this. That's when we don't know all we know. And that's that wonderful professional stage when people will ask you things and you'll answer the questions from the knowledge base that you didn't even know you had. And where does that come from? Well, it comes from attending meetings. It comes from attending conferences. It comes from attending Super Saturdays. It comes from being at major conventions. It comes from listening to things such as Net Law, such as this webcast. It comes from listening to recordings. We have both passive and active learning. And that's the joy of being educated. And then we all know that it's a choice. Learning is a choice. Some of you love being on these webinars because you learn something new. Others said, don't need it, been there, done that. Learning is always a choice. Being wise is a choice. And I'm glad you're making the choice to learn more. For me, it's what makes life exciting. It makes life so exciting because there's so much more to learn, so much more to know. And I'm glad you're making that wise decision to join us. We all choose to learn. The passive learning, we can either pay attention or not pay attention to what's happening around us, right? We can either pay attention to what someone is saying or not pay attention to someone is saying. But making a choice to learn is a choice that makes all of us more complete as a person, more effective as a parent, as a spouse, as an employee, and certainly better to serve our clients. We choose to learn. And once we choose to learn, then we choose to teach and to learn. To teach and to learn. One of the privileges that you and I have is teaching others what we know. And what a joy that is. What a pleasure that is. And I'm trusting that the things that we're going to learn about net law together, that we're going to keep exploring, are things you can teach your clients. In fact, every one of these is prepared with information that you can share directly with your clients. It's so important that we do that because what we're making is an investment. Time is an investment. Net law is an investment. And it's not just an investment that people pay money to have. It's an investment in knowledge. It's an investment in education, and it pays great dividends. I'm really pleased that we have this chance to share together. An investment in knowledge, that pays the best interest. That's what Benjamin Franklin said. And you know, that's what we're doing today. We are making an investment in knowledge, and it's going to pay interest that's going to be rewarding you for the rest of your life and the rest of your career. So thank you for joining us today. This is an investment in knowledge, and it's going to pay the best interest possible. It's going to help you not only be wise, but teach that wisdom to others. And for me, that's really important. The interesting thing about learning is that you can't take people places you have not been. Now, we can write about places we haven't been. We can talk about places we haven't been, but you can't take anyone there unless you've been and understand it. My wife and I love to travel, and we've been so blessed to travel around the world. So when couples go with us to Paris or to London or to Ireland or to Walt Disney World or to Southern California, Los Angeles or New York City, we enjoy being guides because we've been to these places and there's things we can share. And when it comes to end-of-life planning, when it comes to estate planning, you can't take people places you haven't been. The reason I'm passionate about end-of-life planning is I was drugged kicking and screaming, not literally, but very reluctantly in the hospital and had to do the planning for my brother in the 41 days prior to his death. Because I've been there, I can share with you what it's like. And what I've discovered is what you believe really does matter. When it comes to end-of-life care, what you believe really does matter. Today, I participated in a funeral for a brother, and it was a celebration of a life well lived. There were no tears of sorrow. There were tears of joy and laughter and a fulfillment of a life truly well lived. One of the best men I've ever met in my life and one of my dearest friends. It was because what he believed mattered, and he made it matter in everything in his life. There was no hesitation when it came to talking about the end of life with my brother. So his family was totally prepared. He had come to a Fort Talk seminar. He had learned everything there was to know. And he and his wife had sat with me and said, so where do we need to start with here? What do we need to do with this? And from the time his illness became serious and we knew it was going to be terminal till this afternoon when he was laid to rest, everything was done according to what he had planned, because he believed that was important. Belief matters. And when you have proper belief, your confidence shows. So what you believe about net law, what you believe about what you're doing as an advisor, not only does your belief that this is valuable show, but so does your confidence. If you're confident in what you're sharing, if you really believe this is what people ought to do, it will show. And how do you determine that? Well, it's important that your experience shows. Your experience is evident. So for me, that means that you've already done what we're talking about. It's tough to tell people how important this is when you haven't done it. So my appeal to you is, if you have not yet taken advantage of your own ability to create these documents for yourself, please do it. You can share firsthand then what it's like when you talk to your clients. And you know what? Knowing comes from doing, doesn't it? It's one thing to say, I know how to make biscuits, which I don't. Or to say, I know how to make a great pie, or I know how to grill a great piece of meat, or I know how to make a vegetarian delight. I know how to fix a car. I know how to handle my technology. It's another thing to say it, and it's another thing to do it. And the experience is what makes a difference. Knowledge comes from doing. I'm so excited to always say, no family left behind includes yours. And I'm pleased that you're here for your own benefit, not only to create a wealth of income for yourself, but to provide for your family the very things that we're talking about. I think it's so important because, as I've said to you before, a wise household begins with yours. A wise household starts with yours. No family left behind. And that's really important for you. Whether you are the husband or wife, a spouse, a significant other, you can be the one that makes a difference, and you ought to be the one that makes a difference because your values have value. In a world like ours, sometimes we think values have no value. We see people behave and act in ways that we find unseemly and not a part of what we would believe or something we would do. And so sometimes that makes us question our values. Listen, don't do that. Your values have value because they trace right back up to where we began. Your beliefs matter. Net law really makes values real when you think about it, especially when you think about advanced care planning. What net law does, it takes your values, your belief, your confidence, your experience, and it puts them in documents where you can share those things, not only with your medical team, but with your family. Family matters. Family matters. I'm a big fan of Walt Disney, as you know. You've heard me say that before. I'm a big fan of movies. What do you think is the main story of nearly every story that Walt Disney tells and that Pixar does? It's always family, correct? Beauty and the Beast was about family. Moana, it was about family. The Incredibles, coming out again, it's about family. Families really matter. And your family matters as well as the families you talk to. And you need to be able to express that. And you do that by talking about protecting the people we love. You know, if there was a semi-truck coming down the road, and I made this illustration in my book, Fort Talk, and the truck was hurling at you, you would certainly turn the wheel to take your family out of danger. Well, the truth is there is a semi-truck coming toward every family, and it is coming at great speed out of nowhere, headed directly for your family. And that semi is called death. And all you have to do is turn on the TV or open the newspaper, look at the obituaries, remember in your family, man, that truck is flying down the road. We don't see it, but it is coming quickly. And I want to protect the people I love from what's going to happen. And I do that by acting and by caring. And I do that by taking care of the documents that are really important. The documents are important because they're about people. None of the things that we really value are truly things. It's amazing to me that we spend so much time thinking and talking about things when things don't really matter. When we talked about my brother today at the end of his life, the only things we talked about was what made him special. It wasn't anything to do with things. There was no big cars parked out front as a monument to him. What was there was people who loved him, because he made people more important than things. That's how you express love. And how I act, that tells you who I am. It's hard to say I love everybody and be ugly and mean, right? It's really difficult to say I care for you and not express affection. It's really difficult to say my family matters when you don't behave as it does, which becomes really sad. My actions reflect who I am. I've said to you so many times, isness is doesness. One of my professors made that statement, and I've never forgotten it. Isness is doesness. Perhaps that'll be part of your vocabulary. What he means is who we are says what we do, and what we do confirms who we are. How we behave really reflects who we are. So if your family matters, you behave that way. If you love people, then you act that way. It's just important. And wisdom prepares for what I know is coming. Listen, you and I both know death is coming. It may be tomorrow. It may be 20 years from now, but we all know it's coming. And so being prepared for tomorrow is just as important, perhaps more so, than waiting to be prepared 20 years from now. We know what's coming. So as an act of love, as an act of caring, as an act of wisdom, I want to be prepared. Then my head and my heart are aligned. It's important to say this is what I believe, but it's also important to do what you think is proper based on those beliefs. I believe I should prepare. I know I should. And in my heart, I care enough to take the action to do it. That's why NetLaw makes values real. What do you really value? Well, you're going to state that in these documents. You're going to express it in the documents. These documents will reflect who you are as a family. And I think that's so important. So there's three big things when it comes to advanced care planning, and they are my medical documents. My medical documents are critical, and we're going to spend some time on those. My will and my financial decisions, those are important. I've talked to you about NetLaw MD, NetLaw Estate, and then there's, of course, the things that really matter. That's NetLaw Philanthropy or NetLaw Legacy, the things that you do that live after you because of your generosity and your thoughtfulness. I firmly believe that I have nothing that I have not been given, and I want to be a faithful steward of what I've been given. So they're the big three: my medical documents, my will and financial decisions, and the things that really matter. All of those are significant. So what we're going to do over the next 3 sessions is talk about these things to help you get a real fix on them. Why? Well, I love what Cornel West said. He said, it's never a question of skin pigmentation. It's never a question of just culture or sexual orientation or civilization. It's all about what kind of human being you're going to choose to be, from your mama's womb to the tomb, and what kind of legacy you leave. That's what NetLaw is all about. What really matters? It's not what color your skin, it's not your culture, it's not who you are as a man or a woman or your sexual orientation or what country you come from. It's what kind of human being you're going to choose to be from your mama's womb to the tomb, and what kind of legacy you will leave. That's what really matters. You know what? That's what NetLaw is all about. So let's talk about my medical documents. We're going to start with this set of documents today. Next week, we're going to look more at will and testament, family trust, and then we're going to look at legacies. The reason is I want to help you know what we're talking about. My medical documents. This became a law in 1992 after the courts decided that they had a very difficult decision to make and who was really in charge of a woman Actually, there were three young women in this case, three different women in different states, but who had lost their ability to be alive in brain activity, but were still kept alive by machines. So the new law came into effect in 1992 saying that people have a chance to choose how they want to live and how they want their medical treatment to respond to them, especially if they're ever in a coma and can't speak for themselves. It was a statewide requirement, not just in the states where this was first done, but when it was first done in Florida, Pennsylvania, New York, then every state started adopting these same documents of really the patient's right to choose. And its goal was to protect individual rights, to make us know that we are free to choose what kind of care we want and don't want, because the truth is every doctor has a pledge to keep you alive. That's what the Hippocratic Oath is. It's a pledge to keep you alive. But what if you're really not living, but you're still alive? What if your brain activity isn't functioning? What if you can't think, can't make decisions, but your heart can keep beating and your lung can keep breathing? Are you really alive? Well, the medical profession can keep you alive far longer than you are living, in my opinion. And that's the opinion of this law. So you're free to choose. Do you want heroic measures to keep you alive? What about if you know your condition is already terminal? What if you know where this story is going to end and how it's going to end? You are free to choose. The problem is you're also free not to choose. And that's the difficulty with most Americans. We are free not to choose. So to fail to create this legal wall of protection around yourself, to protect you from, you've heard me say before, to protect you from the finest medical treatment in the world, you need to be protected against that, because you can be kept alive breathing and gain pneumonia, which will ultimately kill you. Then why let the breathing create pneumonia for me if it's just another way of dying? I mean, you need this legal wall of protection where you say before any of these things happen, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. And your family values, if your family values are, listen, my dad lived a great life. My friend who lived a wonderful life. He doesn't need heroic measures. He doesn't need his breastbone broken to give him artificial respiration. He doesn't need to be fed by tubes. He doesn't need artificial nutrition. Family values get lost when the doctors do things and the medical team does things that may not be appropriate for what you believe. Medical teams will follow medical procedure, or they'll follow your wishes. And that's what these medical documents are all about. So what is it that you need to have? Well, there's three things, and you've heard me say this before, but I want you to be clear about this, because this is part of your education to help educate your clients. A durable power of attorney for healthcare. That's pretty simple. That's the first document you want to talk to your client about, is a durable power of attorney for healthcare. And the question is really easy. I don't ever want to say, do you have a durable power of attorney for healthcare? Because they're going to say, oh, what? A what? A durable who? About what? No, that's the technical medical term. What we want to learn to ask clients is, who would you like to speak for you if you couldn't speak for yourself? Let's just say that as a result of medication or anesthesia, result of an accident or a fall, that you were unable to speak for yourself. And when you got to the hospital, they said, what should we do? Who would you like to speak for you? That's called a durable power of attorney for healthcare. The person you name becomes your agent or your advocate, your attorney, in fact, and they have all the power to speak for every aspect of your medical care. And this is amazing. So you want to choose carefully. Personally, you want to choose someone who loves you a lot, right? You don't want to choose somebody who says, I can't wait till old Uncle Harry is breathing his last breath. You want somebody who loves you, but somebody who also understands your values. I don't want to be kept alive. I don't need that. I want to be able to have comfort care and be with my family, be as conscious as long as I can, and express my love and appreciation for them. I don't want to be lying there unconscious in intensive care with machines and strangers all around me in a semi-conscious state. That's not what I want. So your attorney, in fact, your durable power of attorney for healthcare gets to speak for you when you can't speak for yourself. That's important. So you've got to have that. That's the first step in your medical documents. Then you need a living will, right? What is a living will? A living will is a will that you write while you are still alive, that talks about the care you want while you are living, but under the treatment of a medical team, of a physician in a hospital. What should they know about your wishes? So the first question is, who would you like to speak for you if you couldn't speak? And the second question is, what would you like this person to know about what kind of medical treatment you want or do not want? What should they know about your wishes? I want to tell you, this is one of the scariest things that I read back when I was doing research for my book. This is Dr. Angela Davis. She's a lawyer and a doctor. She teaches at the Harvard Medical School. If you have not translated your values, your wishes, the core of who you are into some sort of a medical plan, unfortunately, what I will do is oftentimes provide marginal benefit, cause great suffering to you and your family, and frankly, only postpone your death. This is a doctor who says, I want you to write these documents down, because if you don't, I have no choice but to do what the hospital, what my profession, what I'm called to do, even if it provides marginal benefit, causes great suffering, and just postpones your death. What a thoughtful statement. I've said to you before that when my brother was in the hospital, we asked the wrong question. My brother said, is there anything you can do? And I will guarantee you the doctor will always say, of course. There are treatments, plans, procedures. There's a raft of things we can do. Of course we can. Sure. Do you know the causes of death? One of the main causes of death is death by hospital, by diseases, by the wrong medicines, by infections. Golly, that's not the question you want to ask, because there's always more you can do. The question you want to teach yourself to ask, and turn to the members in your family and teach them to say, not is there anything you can do, but you want to say, is this treatment is it going to provide a bridge to healing, or is it just going to prolong my death? Let me say that again. Is this treatment going to provide a bridge to healing, or is it just going to prolong my death? And frankly, there is no healing for stage 4 lung cancer, and that's what the doctor would have said. My brother could have gone home and known what comfort care, hospice, and those things were, and what a blessing they could bring. We didn't know, and it wasn't written down. In what document? A living will. Living will is really a critical document. I want to help you understand it a little bit more today, because it clearly states what care you expect. Here's what I expect. I expect, as long as I am living, for you to give me comfort and to give me care and to help cure whatever it is that's causing my distress. You want to be cared. Living will doesn't say, well, just let me die. That's not it at all. It states what care you expect, but also says what you don't want. You know, if I can't take food, if I can't enjoy it, if I can't eat, if it only causes me problems, then why would you give me nutrition in my veins? If I can't breathe and I'm not going to get better, then why are you doing this to me? And I will tell you, so many people are in that situation in the hospitals now. State what you don't want. I don't want heroic care. And the doctors know exactly what that means. No extremes. Keep me comfortable. Keep me alive while I'm alive. But it states I want a natural death. Did you hear that? A natural death. This is what defines your values and your beliefs. That's when you state the things that are most meaningful to you. Do you know, there are a lot of families who would not want to cripple the finances of their family simply to have another week of being alive. My brother's bills, they were humongous. We didn't get a chance to talk about it. My beliefs are important to me, and they're stated in my living will. Remember, this is not a DNR. People think this means do not resuscitate. If I sign a living will, it means they're just going to get the hospital or just going to let me die. Roll him over there in the side and let him die. Just let her die. That's not it at all. It's not a DNR. It's not a do not resuscitate. It's a place where you state what's really important to you. And it's not to be feared. I think part of the reason why these documents aren't done is so many people are afraid of them. Listen, this is not to be feared. This is to be embraced. This is what allows you to communicate what's important to you. But the states are still living in the past. And I mean your state and my state. When I lived in Kentucky, you had to have your documents done on a pink piece of paper. That's true. Our Kentucky Most Coalition medical order for sustaining treatment, Kentucky Most Coalition, you had to fill out this document, which is a living will, and it has to be in pink paper. And when we set together, the number one question that the Most Coalition participants ask is, who's going to pay for the pink paper? Listen, is that living in the past? Who has a piece of pink paper that they take with them to the hospital? No one that I know of. In Florida, it's yellow. Gosh, how goofy. That's the reason you want it personal, conversational, digital, stored online, and then done so you can share it. And the need, it's everyone. Every person over 18 needs a durable power of attorney for healthcare and a living will. Net Laws just started Net Student. You've heard us talk about that. And with Net Student, parents can provide and universities can provide the documents to the students going to college, because right now, if a college student's hurt, it's hard to get information. In fact, if they're over 18, you can't get it unless there's a HIPAA authority. And you need to have a correct last will. You need a durable power of attorney for healthcare, all your living will, and you need a correct last will. Most people think of this as the estate plan. This is my estate plan. And they get confused because they think, well, I don't have an estate. Sometimes they mean a lot of stuff. Sometimes they mean a big house. It's more than that. It states your intentions about your assets. So whatever your assets are, the will states your intentions about the disposition of these assets. And most of us, for my wife and I, are both 100% of my everything goes to Gloria, 100% of her everything goes to me. And then if one of us predecedes the other, and then that person dies, then there's a disposition of our assets for our children and for our grandchildren. It's just really important that you understand this is a way just to say what you want to happen to your assets after you've gone. And all you care to describe can be in it. For example, I was given a marvelous watch from my firm. I used to work for Merrill Lynch. It's a very expensive gift with engraving, and I want to be sure that goes to one of my sons. That's what's important. Not important in the sense that I have this thing, but it's important that my son has it to give to his son and hopefully to his son. If he chooses to sell it to take a trip to Las Vegas, listen, that's okay too, because I'm giving it to him. So all you care to describe can be included in there. It can be a bracelet, a jewelry, your smartphone, your glasses, your boat, whatever. But you want to be sure it goes where you want to go. And if you don't, it can cause problems. And then it's to those you wish to name. When my brother's will was written, we didn't know it because we had an attorney who didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't a estate planning attorney. He just cut and pasted some documents together from Contract Express. And unfortunately, there was an important part in there about who your children are and who they aren't. Well, he only named a couple of children. And that's why we had this huge contest with people believing that they were his children. So this solves problems when you do a will. And then your guardianships are critical. You've heard me say so over and over and over again so often that if you have children under 18, you must have a will, because guardianships can be taken over by the state. And in fact, they will. If you do not have a will appointing the guardian, the state already knows what's going to happen to your children. And the sad thing is, if you have special needs children, once they become 18, they can become a ward of the state, and you have nothing to say about their care. It's just really important that you think about a will and you know its specific bequests, some things that you want to leave to a certain institution or to school or to some charity in your community who's doing great work. You can make specific bequests here. And remember, a correct last will is only valid after your death. A living will is valid before your death. That's why it's called a living will. A correct last will, which is disposition of your assets, only comes valid after your death. And then your financial decisions are important. What are those? Who would you want to make your financial decisions for you if you no longer could? You know, if you were, again, unconscious or unable to think clearly, who would you want to make your financial decisions? This is a durable power of attorney for finance. Durable because it endures when you're alive but still can't make decisions. So my wife is my durable power of attorney for finance, and I am her durable power of attorney for finance. It's really a critical document because the question is, who do you trust to make every financial decision while you live, but without capacity? Suppose dementia or Alzheimer's or medications or an injury or an accident or an illness made you, or a stroke made you unable to speak. Who's going to make decisions? You have to name that person. That's why these documents are so important. And you want to name somebody you can trust because they can have the power to empty your bank account. They can buy and sell real estate. They have unlimited powers. But unless you give those powers to someone you trust, then they may be given to someone who you do not even know and doesn't understand what your values are. Note this. An executor makes all the decisions in your will, with your will, and is accountable for those decisions back to the courts following your death. That's what an executor does. So when we think about a total estate plan, we're aware that an executor is the one who carries out your will after your death. A living will, you appoint an agent who carries out your will regarding your health prior to your death. Your durable power of attorney for finance has no control after your death. The executor makes those decisions. Durable power of attorney for finance speaks while you were alive but have lost capacity. So don't get the two confused. What really matters? You know, I want to say this again. I think it's so important that you understand this and communicate to your clients. It's never a question of skin pigmentation. It's never a question of your culture or your sexual orientation or your civilization. It's what kind of human being you're going to choose to be. That's what all of this net law documentation is about. It's what kind of human being you're going to choose to be from your mama's womb to the tomb, and what kind of legacy you leave. This is so very important. So I hope you take the time to do your work with net law. It's really critical. And then to give gifts beyond your circle is really important. My wife and I are naming a number of places in our will because there's institutions that need our help. There are church organizations and benevolent organizations that need our help. There's also communities of faith that need your help. We are givers to our community of faith, and we're going to continue that after we're no longer here, because the community of faith we serve deserves our support, and it deserves our support even after we're gone. Think about the agencies in your community who are cultural or social or helping young people, helping education, providing great services to the elderly. Every one of these deserves your help. So think about that when you think about a legacy and what kind of person you are. It's just so important that we think about how we want to be remembered. You know, when we did this service for my friend, the question was not, what kind of guy is he? No one said, well, he was a good man, but. No one said, you know, this service says a whole lot about him that's not really true. Not at all. because he was remembered exactly as he lived, as a generous, loving, compassionate man who loved his family, loved his Lord, loved life, and celebrated all three. How do you want to be remembered? Will your generosity show? Will your love show? I trust that'll work. Remember, every day of your life, you're telling a story. Every day, you are writing your own story. You're scripting your own life. I remember when I was in high school, we studied Julius Caesar, one of the plays of William Shakespeare. And this line has stuck with me forever. After Caesar was dead, Mark Antony said, "The evil that men do lives after them, but the good is often interred with their bones." You may have seen the stories about Harvey Weinstein. He was once known as a man who made some amazing films. In fact, made a movie called Shakespeare in Love. He took chances and risks, and he did a great work in the film community. Nobody's going to remember that. They're going to remember he was a sexual predator. That's what they're going to remember. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones. And our goal in Net Law is to help us all learn to do good, because that's what these documents are all about. So I hope this educational time has helped you, that you help your clients be smart. And how do you do that? It's step 6 on your phone. But I heard one of your top leaders say, Net Law ought to be step 1. Net Law ought to be step 1. It ought to be where you begin. Why? Because it starts with the conversations about what matters most to your client. And you and I both talked about this before, what a selling tool it is, because you get a chance to talk about the vault. Why make Net Law important? Why get smart? Gosh, because it helps your clients. Well, I hope that you have been helped today. I trust that you've learned more about the key things that are important about what we do, the Net Law healthcare documents, Net Law MD, the Net Law estate, Net Law philanthropy, and all the various things. And I hope you learned some simple ways to discuss it with your clients, because now is the time. And by the way, if you haven't done this yourself, why not? Come on, get it done. You can't take people where you're not willing to go yourself. And we're here to help. Mark, Vanessa, Mary, or Jennifer, these are good folks, and they are smart. And not only will they talk to you, they will talk to your clients. And check out step 6 in the App Store. If you're new, then you get the best gift of all. You get a buy one, get one free. What a deal. Call 1-888-604-4789, and I look forward to seeing you next week. So, Gary, thank you for all your help. Mark, thank you, brother, for what you do. And I'm excited to be a part of Net Law, because I believe that what we're doing can change lives and families.